The Town Without Clocks in Arizona. A late-night story about time that forgot to keep moving. Have you ever heard of a place without clocks? Not just a forgotten clock on the wall, but an actual town. A real town where time doesn't move the way you think it does. If you're brave enough to drive deep into southwestern Arizona, past dusty roads and away from anything resembling civilization, you might just stumble upon a rusted sign. Welcome to Verity, where time fell asleep. No one knows when Verity was founded. There are no records. No paperwork. Modern maps don't acknowledge it. But long-haul truckers, desert hunters, and wandering travelers have told stories of a small town tucked between rocky desert and scattered cacti, where there isn't a single clock in sight. Not on the walls, not on anyone's wrist, not in their pockets. Even your car's digital clock will freeze the moment you cross into the town's hazy edge. The story begins on a summer night when Thomas Ellery, a journalist known for chasing strange tales, left Phoenix in his beat-up Jeep with a hand-drawn map he bought from a man named Hank in a dimly lit bar. Hank had eyes like he'd seen something he shouldn't have. "Don't stay past sundown," Hank whispered, his voice low and rough like desert wind. Verity don't take kindly to outsiders. Most of all, don't ask them what time it is. Thomas had laughed it off. He figured it was just a clever pitch to sell the crumpled piece of paper. But sure enough, around 6 p.m., according to his dashboard clock, he spotted a faded sign after a long bend in the road. Verity, where time fell asleep. He stopped in front of an old store with a wooden hand-painted sign. Verity Pharmacy, open when it feels right. And sure enough, the door was open, a soft light glowing inside. But no one was behind the counter. Wall clock, empty space, just rusted hooks where something once hung. Thomas stepped back outside and looked around. The entire town felt still. No engine sounds. No footsteps. Just wind whispering against tin roofs and wind chimes clinking in no particular rhythm. Time in Verity isn't dead, but it isn't quite alive either. The first person he met was an old woman with silver hair, watering wildflowers in front of a small wooden house. She looked at him, smiled, and asked, "You're not from here, are you?" From one of those places still measuring hours. Thomas clicked on his recorder. "Can you tell me? How does a town work if no one knows what time it is?" She winked. "We know. We just don't measure it. Around here, a day lasts as long as your mind believes. The sun rises when you need to wake up, and it sets when your soul feels tired." Thomas was puzzled. But how do people make plans? Work? Sleep? She laughed. A laugh like wind weaving through pine trees. "You're still thinking like the world out there. In Verity, we move by our own rhythm. There's no need to chase the ticking hands of a clock." So Thomas decided to stay for just one night. Just one, he told himself. He checked into a place called the Vague Rest Inn. where there were no keys, no check-in times. The innkeeper, a man whose eyes looked like they had seen more than one lifetime, simply said, "Stay as long as you feel you need to." Thomas fell into a strange sleep. He had no idea how long it lasted, but when he woke up, it felt like he'd just come out of a dream that spanned years. He wasn't hungry or tired, but something inside him had changed. His car's clock still read 6 o'clock, just like when he'd arrived. He left Verity that day, or at least he thought he did. But when he returned to Phoenix, his phone didn't work. Everyone he knew seemed older or different. Back at his old office, his coworkers looked at him like they'd seen a ghost. "24 years, Tom," one of them said. "You vanished 24 years ago." Thomas couldn't believe it. But when he looked in the mirror, his hair was streaked with gray. He wasn't 30 anymore. Some say Verity is a crack in the flow of time. Others say it's where time goes to be healed or to be forgotten. Whatever it is, if one night you're driving through the Arizona desert and your digital clock suddenly freezes, pay attention to your surroundings. If you see a rusted sign that says, "Verity, where time fell asleep," you might want to stop. But don't forget what Hank said. Don't ask them what time it is. The Ones Who Stayed in Verity. A continuation of The Town Without Clocks in Arizona, told in the hush of midnight, where darkness and stillness are characters of their own. When Thomas Ellery left Verity and discovered he'd lost 24 years without even realizing it, he tried to forget that place. But how do you forget a town where time doesn't flow, just quietly stops, like the universe itself misplaced it? How do you forget the eyes of people who looked at you like they'd seen across lifetimes? Or that feeling that if you'd stayed just one more night, you might never have left at all? Thomas never returned to Verity, but he started looking for others. And they, like him, were people who had once arrived and could never quite let it go. Clara Jennings, the girl who didn't grow. Thomas found Clara in a small psychiatric facility in Utah. A young woman, no more than 20, had been admitted after her parents realized she hadn't aged in over 12 years. Doctors were baffled. Her cells didn't age. Her biological clock had stopped ticking. Thomas asked her, "Have you ever heard the name Verity?" Clara looked up, and for the first time in years she smiled. "I used to blow soap bubbles from the balcony of a lilac-colored house," she said. "The wind carried them so far, but none of them ever popped. I wasn't sleepy or hungry or worried, just peaceful." "Why did you leave?" She went quiet for a long while. "I missed the sound of the school bell. I missed the ticking of my alarm clock. But when I came back, no one recognized me anymore." Reverend Miles, the keeper of timeless prayers. Outside Tucson, Thomas met an old reverend living alone, aged in body but with eyes as clear as well water. "I once went to Verity," he said when Thomas mentioned the town without clocks. I went to preach salvation, but then I realized no one needed it. Why not? Thomas asked. Because in verity, no sin lasts forever. No wound is trapped in a moment. There's no past to regret, no future to fear. They live right now. Thomas said nothing. The Reverend gazed toward the desert and whispered, I used to think I left verity, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe this is just another limb of it, one of its outer edges. Maybe verity isn't a place. Maybe it's a state of soul. Lucian, the gatekeeper of no time. Thomas found the last one through a strange story told by a desert drifter. That a man named Lucian stood out in the sands, at a bus stop no map would show, watching over a route no bus ever seemed to take. And just like the story said, Thomas found him. Lucian stood by a broken lamppost, next to a faded sign that read, Verity bus stop, schedule undecided. He wore an old sand-colored vest. His eyes were pale brown but deep, like a well with no bottom. When's the next bus? Thomas joked. Lucian smiled. When you stop waiting for it. Who are you? Someone who missed one ride and realized I didn't want to leave after all. How many others like you? People who chose to stay? Lucian looked toward the indigo horizon. More than you'd think. Verity isn't just a town. It's a crossroads between threads of time. A place for those tired of time to finally pause. The ones who stayed, they are not lost souls. They're the ones who found something, the kind of stillness the outside world can't offer. A mother who lost her child, but in verity, she meets him again in the same dream every night, and the dream never ends. An old man, forgotten by society, but in verity, he tells stories to children every lavender dusk. A girl who never knew who she was, but in verity, she never needed a name to be loved. The final whisper. You ask me, so, does verity still exist? I don't know. Maybe tonight you'll find it. On a lonely highway drive, when your phone clock suddenly freezes. When the FM radio fades to static and the moon hangs a little too low in the sky. If you see an unmarked dirt road that leads to a quiet town with no noise, you might have found verity. Just remember one thing. If you step inside, don't try to count the seconds. And if you decide to stay, understand this. Sometimes the only healing we truly need is a place where time simply can't find us. The Town of Verity in Legend. Diary of the One Who Never Returned. A continuation of the Late Night Tale series about Verity, the clockless town in Arizona. We begin not with narration, but with a piece of paper. A yellowed sheet, discovered in a rotting wooden drawer, inside an abandoned cabin near the New Mexico border, far from any main road, with no electricity, no water. In that cabin, amid thick dust and the corpses of dead insects, a leather-bound notebook was found, wrapped tightly in coarse hemp string. The first page read, These notes are for anyone brave enough to read on. My name is Ira M. Calloway, and I never returned from Verity. Day 1, the invisible wall. I didn't find it on a map. I found it by instinct. An unmarked dirt road. Cacti stood on either side like silent sentinels. When my tires crossed a strange line of wind, all sound stopped. No birds, no insects. Only the feeling of stepping through the thin veil of the world. Ira wrote in clear, steady handwriting. The early entries were like observations. The town had about 30 houses, a general store named Mabel's, a white church with no bell, and a barber who didn't use scissors. He simply ran his hands through people's hair until they felt lighter. Day 8, the people who don't ask the time. No one asked where I came from. No one said what day it was. Whenever I raised my wrist to check my watch, someone would gently place their hand on mine. Not to stop me, more like they were soothing me. You don't need that here. Ira met a man named Carson, once a logistics company CEO. He gave it all up to live in a house with no locks. The first day I came here, Carson said, I took a nap and woke up with white hair, but I felt at peace. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was slipping downhill. Day 15, the room with no mirrors. I realized there were no mirrors where I was staying. No one in Verity seemed to care about how they looked. But no one looked ragged either. They looked exactly as they were meant to be. A girl named Elsie, who baked bread every morning, though no one ever said what time morning was, told Ira a local legend. Time is a living thing. It hates being watched. It came to Verity where no one spies on it, and it stayed. Day 30, I begin to forget. Not forgetting everything, just forgetting the rush. I stopped springing out of bed, stopped checking calendars, stopped wondering what day it was. I drank tea with Mabel without noticing when it had gone cold. I listened to the wind as if it were telling stories. Ira began to change. His tone grew quiet. No more question marks. His sentences stretched long, as if language itself were slowing down with him. I began to believe I'd been in Verity before. Maybe in a past life. Maybe in a dream I once had. Unmarked day, the one-way door. I tried to leave, but when I got about 5 miles past the town's edge, I found myself back at Mabel's doorstep, exactly as if I'd never left. Ira didn't panic. He recorded it as if describing the weather. On another page, he drew a broken pocket watch. Its hands snapped and wrote, "When you're no longer chased by time, you stop running." Final page, choosing to stay. I think I used to fear getting old, used to fear death. But then I understood what exhausts people isn't age. It's the never-ending countdown. In Verity, there's no counting, only the present, vast and endless, like desert wind. The final line in the notebook is a decision. I won't write anymore, not because I forget, but because I no longer need to remember. If someone finds this notebook, Please live slowly even for just one day. Maybe then you'll find your own Verity. Note from the discoverer. The person who found the notebook, a photographer named Devin Reese, said that after taking some photos of the cabin and bringing the notebook back, he tried to return to the spot, but never found the road again. And the camera he used that day, every photo of the cabin vanished. The memory card showed files existed, but none could be opened. Only one image survived. A weathered wooden sign, hand-painted and half-rotted, reading, "Verity, where time forgets to move." Mabel and the Timeless Loaves. A continuation of the late-night tales of Verity, the clockless town in Arizona. If Verity has a soul, it lives in Mabel's little kitchen. No one knows exactly how old she is. She has a round, comforting figure, her hair always tied up neatly, her cheeks perpetually rosy like she's just stepped out of the oven, and a voice as warm as honey soaked with cinnamon. No one calls her by her full name, simply Miss Mabel, as if that name had been part of Verity long before time started forgetting this place. The bakery without opening hours. Her shop sits at the corner of a road no one remembers the name of, guarded by a towering cactus and marked by a small brass bell hanging on the porch, which has never rung, not even in the wind. There's no sign, no menu, no posted hours. And strangest of all, no fire. Her oven uses no gas, no electricity, and emits no smoke. Yet every loaf she pulls out is warm, crusty, and fragrant with the scent of fermented dough and anise seed. The crust is perfectly crisp, the inside soft as clouds, and always fresh from the oven. People ask her, "How do you know when the bread is done?" She just smiles and says, "When the heart feels it's ready." Bread of memory. Everyone who comes to Verity has a reason, and somehow they all find their way to that little bakery. A salt and pepper-haired man once entered, sat in silence. Mabel placed a slice of dark rye spread with orange marmalade in front of him. He wept. "My mother made this every time my father hit us," he whispered. "I forgot how it tasted until now." A young girl came in trembling, arms scarred. Mabel handed her a soft milk bun dusted with sugar. How did you know I love this?" the girl asked. "Because I was you once." No one ever left her shop empty-handed. Mabel's bread wasn't just food. It was a door leading back to lost pieces of oneself, to the time before time had the chance to do damage. The secret of the nameless flame. One autumn night, under a pale yellow moon, Thomas Ellery, who once left Verity and returned for memory's sake, asked her, "Miss Mabel, what powers that oven? Really?" She looked at him without surprise, didn't answer right away. She rose, untied her apron, and motioned for him to follow. They entered the back kitchen, a place no one else had ever seen. There was an old oven, its red bricks worn down, its mortar crumbling. No wires, no pipes, just a single round hole glowing with an amber gold light, like a small fire gently breathing. But strangely, the light didn't flicker. It didn't move. Simply was. "This fire runs on beautiful moments," she said.
Moments.
"Every happy memory someone brings into this shop, it adds a bit more light. As long as people still long, still need a place to rest from time's endless current, this flame will burn." Thomas stood in silence, and he understood. Mabel's bakery was the heart of Verity, a place where time didn't die. It simply chose to rest in kindness. The letter without a date. One day, after years without a single soul seeing her, a letter was found on the bakery counter, beside a freshly baked loaf. The handwriting was unmistakably Mabel's. "Time can no longer catch up with me, so I'll go on ahead just a little to set the table for those who'll come later. Keep baking even without fire, because love, when deep enough, warms on its own." The letter had no signature, no date, but the people of Verity still visit the shop every day. Even though she's not there, the bread still appears. The door remains open, and those who arrive in town, even by accident, always seem to find exactly the bread they never said out loud. Some say Mabel never existed, that she was just a shared memory among the lost, a symbol of comfort beyond the limits of time. But if you ever pass through a certain town on the mirage roads of Arizona and smell fresh bread wafting into the night, step inside. And if the loaf placed in your hands is the same kind you once shared with your mother long ago, then maybe, just maybe, you found Verity, and somehow Mabel still remembers you. The cartographer of roads that don't exist. There are roads that don't appear on any map, and there are people who spend their lives trying to record what can't be seen with the eye. His name was August Rourke, a former terrain engineer, once part of a civil survey team for the state government of Arizona. He used to take pride in the belief that there wasn't a mile of road in the American West he hadn't stepped on, until the day he saw a faint smudge on a military map, marked by 3 handwritten letters he could barely read. Verity? It was the question mark that haunted him. The elder and the map that wouldn't print. He was 63 that year. Retirement age, sure, but his mind was still spinning like a compass with no true north. His wife had passed early. His son had moved to the East Coast, and August's days had become a looping cycle of cold coffee, local radio, and yellowed paperwork. Then one night, he dreamed of a town without people, where every crossroads led back to itself. On the window of a small shop, he saw a sign written backward. "You've never really left." He woke up, turned on the light, and rolled out his maps. "Verity," he murmured. "Let's see if you're real." The journey beyond the compass. August set out fully equipped. GPS unit, topographical charts, a distance meter, and a blank sheet he called Map 27. The 27th attempt to find one of the strange locations that had eluded him before. But Verity wasn't like the others. Around day 3, lost in the desert, with his GPS glitching and his compass spinning wildly, August saw a faint track leading into the brush. Not clearly a road, maybe just a mirage baked by the heat. But he followed it, and a few hours later he stepped into Verity, the town that moves in silence. August did what he did best: measuring, sketching, taking notes. He didn't ask the townspeople ordinary questions. Instead, he asked, how many intersections are there? Where does Main Street end? Are there any official borders? The people of Verity just smiled and sipped their coffee. An old man named Walter said, "Draw all you like, but be careful, paper doesn't forget, and Verity never sits still long enough." August didn't believe it, not until he returned to a road he'd walked earlier that morning, and found it gone, the map that changed as he drew it. He redrew the entire town on map 27. But the next morning, when he looked again, the layout had shifted. Miss Mabel's bakery, which had been to the east, was now in the northwest. The church, once at the top of a hill, had moved behind an old flame tree, and a lane he'd labeled Windway had vanished from the page entirely. August grew frustrated. He redrew, then again, and again. By the 9th version, the map began reacting. The paper yellowed, the ink ran, lines faded in front of his eyes like vanishing steam. He felt defeated, until a child in town asked him, "Are you drawing from memory, or are you just afraid of getting lost?" August froze, and for the first time he realized every map he'd ever made was about control, about capturing and holding tight what couldn't be held. The final map. That night he put down his tools, closed his eyes.
No measurements, no coordinates.
He drew from memory, but not memories of streets. He drew what he felt at each turn. The place where he heard singing echo from a sky blue house. The alley where a cat followed him for 3 blocks. The corner where Miss Mabel handed him a cinnamon loaf, just like the kind his wife used to love. And this time the page didn't blur. It didn't smudge. It didn't change. The map emerged like a wordless song, capturing emotion, not direction. The final entry in his journal. Verity isn't for those who seek control. It's for those willing to get lost, to find themselves again. I won't leave this place, because for the first time in my life, I've made a map not to guide me, but to remember. That final map was found years later, tucked inside a used book at a dusty shop in Flagstaff. No one knows who placed it there. It had no coordinates, no scale, no north arrow. Only a single handwritten line in the bottom corner. Verity, where maps are drawn with the heart, not with ink. The banjo echoes through the fog. Some nights, Verity sinks into fog, thick as wool, draping over the town like an old scarf. Everything slows down then, softens, as if the world is whispering to itself. And in that sugar-coated silence, everyone can hear it, the sound of a banjo, not the kind you'd hear from an old radio or a Nashville street corner, but something raw, aching, like someone picking strings woven from memory and untold stories. The old man on the rooftop. No one knows where he came from. No one remembers his name, and no one's ever heard him speak. He only appears when the fog rolls in, perched on the roof of the old sewing machine repair shop, legs swinging, hands plucking a faded banjo. A wide-brimmed hat hides most of his face. An old canvas coat hangs off his shoulders, his back slightly hunched as if he's carrying the weight of a whole era. People call him all kinds of names. The silent balladeer, the time strummer, Verity's voice, but no one's ever asked him his real name. And he never says a word except through music. The song that never repeats. What's strange is this. Every time he plays, the song is different. Even the most musically gifted can't predict the next note. One night, a little girl named Maggie asked her mother, "Why doesn't he ever play the same song twice?" Her mother stroked her hair and smiled. "Because he's not playing for himself. He's playing for whoever needs to hear it. Music that knows how to listen." There was a man named Caleb, a long-haul trucker, passing through Verity when his rig broke down. That night he sat alone in the diner, tired, bitter, his coffee gone cold, his life unraveling. Then the banjo began, slow, mournful, like footsteps returning from somewhere far away. Toward the end, the notes dipped low, like someone holding on to their last memory before letting go. Caleb wept. The next morning, he left a note for the waitress. That song, it was the same one my wife used to play. I haven't heard it since she passed. Until last night. The lost who stayed. Some people were planning to leave Verity, but turned back when they heard the banjo. Some never meant to enter the town, but hit the brakes when the fog carried that lonely sound. A couple on the verge of breaking up stood under the awning, wrapped in silence as the chorus drifted through the mist. Then they reached for each other and held on. No one ever says what the music is, but everyone understands. That sound is listening, and it plays exactly what your heart can't say. The final song. One winter night, the fog was thicker than ever. The whole town felt submerged beneath a sea of cold milk. No one saw the old man, but the banjo played on, soft, tender, unhurried. This time the song repeated, each cycle deeper, more patient. A blind schoolteacher whispered, "Tonight, the music is saying goodbye." And indeed, after that night, the old man never appeared again. The last trace. On the rooftop where he used to sit, someone found an old banjo. The strings were worn thin. 2 words were carved into its wooden face by hand. No one dared to play it. But whenever the fog drapes Verity in silence, some folks swear they still hear the banjo echoing faintly in the alleys. A melody without beginning, without end. Like the town of Verity, where time doesn't need clocks, and music doesn't need a player. The tea house of forgotten dreams. There are diners that stay open 24 hours. There are bars that only open after midnight. But in Verity, there's a place more unusual than all of them. A tea house that opens only on crescent moon nights. No sign, no hours, no menu. Just a small wooden cottage at the end of a gravel slope, its door always slightly ajar, with a single paper lantern swaying on the porch, glowing faintly like the breath of sleep. Locals call it the tea house of forgotten dreams. The owner, the woman who doesn't drink tea, her name is Lina, a silver-haired woman who wears an amethyst robe and a necklace with a clock that has no hands. She never drinks her own tea, and when someone asks why, she simply smiles. I brew tea for other people's dreams, not mine. Every crescent moon night, she sits behind the counter, pouring tea from an old mismatched set of porcelain teapots. No two cups ever look alike, as if they belong to different worlds. And the strangest part, you don't order anything, you just sit. She looks at you, and after a few quiet moments, she places a cup in front of you. The scent hits you, hauntingly familiar, but impossible to name. It's the taste of a dream you once had and forgot. Flavors you can't find again. A young man passing through Verity once wandered in, drawn by the faint glow of the lantern. Lina served him a cup of amber tea with a scent of orange peel, damp earth, and a hint of wood smoke. He took one sip and broke into tears. I once dreamed of living with my grandparents in the countryside, but I chose the city instead. Then they passed. I forgot that dream, until now. An elderly woman with memory loss visits the tea house often. Each time she drinks, she giggles softly and whispers, "This was the dream I had when I was a girl. I danced alone in the schoolyard. In the rain, I thought I had forgotten. Not everyone can find it. The tea house doesn't open every crescent moon, and not everyone walking by will see it. Some people live their whole lives in Verity and never find it once. People say, you only find it when your heart remembers something your mind has let go of, or maybe when you're ready to forgive yourself." One night, a stranger, he walked in tall and lean, his leather jacket worn at the shoulders, his eyes full of denial. He sat down without a word. Lina looked at him for a long, long time, then silently poured a cup of dark tea, scented with mint and burnt wood. He raised the cup to his lips, took a sip, then froze, set it down. His hands shook, his breath hitched. I used to dream of being a better man, but I chose the other path. I walked away from the woman I loved, because I thought I didn't deserve her. I thought that dream didn't matter. But it turns out, it was the best part of me. When the tea cools, the dream stays. No one ever takes the tea with them. Once it cools, the cup is empty. But what they do take with them is something strange. a feeling that they've just reunited with a part of themselves they thought was gone, even if only for a few sips. Words from Lina. We don't always live our dreams, but sometimes remembering the ones we once had is enough to change the path ahead. The ferns on the hilltop and the gatekeeper of memories. A quiet tale from Verity, the town without clocks. The northern hill of Verity has no name, no signposts, no clear path leading to it. People in town simply call it Fern Hill because year-round, whether under burning sun or parched rain, ferns continue to whisper and grow across the dry red earth, like memories that haven't quite faded. And at the very top of that hill, there's a man who sits day and night, guarding a dark wooden chest. People call him the gatekeeper of memories. The chest and the names never spoken aloud. The chest looks ordinary, like something you'd find in a dusty attic. But as you approach it, your heartbeat slows. Not from fear, but because something inside knows you better than you know yourself. Once someone dared to ask the old man, "What's in the chest, sir?" He didn't look up. His voice was rough, like gravel rolling over dry ground. The names of those forgotten by the world, not because they died. They just slipped from the memory of others, and even from their own. The ones who climb Fern Hill. Not everyone can find the path up the hill. Only those who've wandered too far from themselves. The ones who suddenly wake one day and realize they're no longer who they used to be, will stumble onto the fern-lined trail. There was an artist who once painted his entire childhood in vivid colors, but now stares at his palette unsure of what he used to dream. There was a mother of 3 whose life became so busy she forgot the 17-year-old girl who once wrote handwritten letters and sang softly from the balcony. There was a musician who wrote a song no one ever heard and no longer remembers writing it. They come and sit beside the old man, no questions asked. He opens the chest, lifts a single slip of paper, and reads it slowly, like calling a name from the bottom of time. When a name is spoken again. One windy evening, a silver-haired man sat quietly beside the gatekeeper, his hands trembling. The old man opened the chest, pulled out a torn piece of paper, and read, "Elias Marrow, the one who once swore he'd never leave the little wooden bridge over the Rill River. The one who forgot the bridge, forgot the vow, and forgot even his name." The man began to cry like a child, not because he remembered, but because in that moment, he felt who he once was and how beautiful it had been. No one takes the name with them. No one is ever allowed to touch the chest. When a name is spoken, the memory flows back, but it cannot be held in your hands, only in your heart. I don't keep memories so they can be reclaimed, the old man says. I keep them so they don't disappear entirely. Ferns, the plant that doesn't need sunlight. People in Verity say the ferns on that hill don't need sunlight to live. They survive on things forgotten. Each leaf is a dream never spoken aloud. a melody never sung to the end. And the old man, the gatekeeper of memories, sits like a root among them. A windless night. That night, the moon was dim. The wind did not stir. A young woman with tangled hair and a quiet presence sat silently before the old man. He opened the chest, searched carefully for a long time, but found nothing. Your name isn't in the chest. That means no one has forgotten you yet. She bowed her head and smiled, and for the first time the old man stood up. He handed her a pencil. Memories aren't always waiting in the chest. Sometimes we have to write them back, to hold on to who we are. Behind Fern Hill, there's a narrow trail leading into the woods. They say, if you remember who you are, the path will take you home. But if you're still unsure, you'll return to the chest. The station with no last train. There's a small train station tucked behind a row of gray stone buildings on the southern edge of Verity, hidden between two lines of tall, slender eucalyptus trees. No sign, no schedule, no announcements, and no one quite remembers when it was built, or whether a train ever truly came and left. Locals call it the station with no last train. The trains that never arrive on time. There are no departure times, no tickets, no lines. People just wait. Some wait for a few hours. Some wait their whole lives. The train only arrives when you have something left unsaid. An apology, a goodbye, a missed embrace, a dream you were too afraid to admit. The station master, a quiet man in a worn white shirt and an old cap, spends his time dusting the wooden bench. He speaks to no one, but hands each visitor a small slip of paper, written in faded purple ink. The train will arrive when you're ready to let go. The bench and the unfinished stories. The bench at the station is made of rosewood. Every scratch along its surface holds a story that was never fully told. An old woman with silver hair, clutching a faded knit scarf, visits once a month. I had a daughter. She left after a fight. I never got to tell her I understood, that I wasn't angry. A young man in a torn hoodie, a guitar slung over his back, sits quietly from dusk until midnight. I wrote a song for her, but I saved it for the right moment. She left, and I still don't know when the right moment was supposed to be. Asterisk asterisk. When the train arrives, there is no whistle, no screech of wheels on the rails, just a soft breeze drifting through, and the oil lamp by the station window quietly going out. You'll know, because your heart will beat with a silent thud, as if you just set down something you had carried for far too long. The train arrives as quietly as a memory no longer begging to be held. The doors open. You won't see a conductor or other passengers, just a row of velvet seats and a window looking out onto all the things you never got to do again. Not everyone boards the train. Some leave the station and return to Verity, because they realize not everything needs to be let go. Some things simply need to be accepted. Others board the train without a glance back. They go, as if they've already been there for a long, long time, and today was simply the day they caught the final ride. For something left undone. The station master's last words. One night beneath a crescent moon, a boy no older than 12 stood in front of the station, clutching a letter he never got to send. The envelope was addressed to a father who had passed. The station master sat beside him and asked gently, "What did you write in the letter?" The boy didn't look up. "I just wanted to say, I've forgiven you. I'm not angry anymore." The station master smiled, reached into his pocket, and placed a silver paper ticket in the boy's hand. "Then you're ready. But this train, it's not here to take you. It's only here to carry the anger away, returning from the station with no last train. Those who've sat at the station often return with quieter eyes, but eyes that shine brighter. They no longer live inside what they never said. They begin to speak the things they should have said long ago. If you ever find yourself in Verity and come across a station lined with eucalyptus trees blowing in the wind, don't look for the last train. Just sit, remember, and say what you've never said. You might just hear the sound of a train in the quiet of your own heart. The post office that sends letters to the past. If you walk along the moss-covered cobblestone path on the eastern edge of Verity, cross a weathered wooden bridge with handrails worn by time, you'll find a small building, square like a box, with a gray tiled roof and a facade covered in withered ivy. The wooden sign in front reads just 3 words, painted in deep reddish brown. The Post Office of Memory. Every morning, before the dew has fully lifted from the bushes, the postmaster, an elderly woman with silver hair, dressed in a moss-green sweater, and eyes the color of old tea, opens the heavy door, places a warm cup of tea on the table, and sits to wait. No one ever sends mail to this post office. People only send letters to the past. Letters without an address. In a wooden drawer behind the counter, there are hundreds of envelopes, yellowed with age, sealed with beeswax and tied with red string. On each envelope, the writer simply writes one line. To me in 1994. To the boy who just cried at the soccer field. To the woman who still believes in love. To that night. No address. No recipient's name. Because the recipient is the older version of the writer. The only rule. This post office has just one rule. You can only send a letter when you're truly honest. And you will never receive a reply. Many people, when they first arrive, scoff. Then what's the point of sending it? But then they see the 4th drawer from the left, where a pile of unsent letters sits. Each envelope soaked with tears. A man and 3 short lines. One quiet afternoon, a middle-aged man entered, his white shirt wrinkled, shoulders hunched, eyes tired like someone who had been running through a dream without ever finding the way out. He sat at the table and wrote only 3 lines on a thin piece of paper. "Don't yell at Mom. She just wants to hold you one last time. Then she'll go." He folded the letter, sealed it, and shakily wrote on the envelope, "To me at 17." No one asked any further questions. The old woman nodded and placed the letter in a special drawer, the one where the most regretful things are gently kept. "Can it really be sent back?" Someone once asked the old woman. "How do you send these letters to the past?" She didn't answer. She just smiled and poured more tea. Some things don't need to go anywhere. They just need to be written down, to leave your heart. The iron chest and letters returned. Behind the post office, in a hidden corner, there's an old iron chest, where letters that can't be sent are stored. They're returned not because of a wrong address, but because the writer isn't yet ready to let go. It's said that whenever a letter is returned, verity will have reigned that night. Soft, quiet, as if the heart of the writer hasn't yet dried. A girl and the shortest message in town. One autumn day, a 10-year-old girl, wearing a pleated skirt and rubber boots, entered the post office, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. She didn't write much, only 2 words, "Thank you." When the old woman took it, she asked, "Who is this for, dear?" The girl smiled shyly and whispered, "For me, when I was afraid of the dark." No one truly returns to the past. This post office cannot bring you back. But if you've ever written a letter from your heart, you'll feel something lighter inside. As if you just walked out of a room without windows and suddenly saw the first light after years of darkness. If there's something you've never said to yourself at any point in time, don't be afraid to write it down. Although the past can't change, you can change the way you live with it. In verity, that's always enough to begin again. The lights that never go out on Alohan Street. Alohan Street is the quietest road in verity. It's only about a mile long, but the houses lining the street emit a strange glow. Not from the usual street lamps, but from the lights hanging on porches, old lamps that stay lit all night, as if they've never grown tired. No one really knows why the lights on Alohan Street never turn off. Even on rainy days or under the full moon's light, they continue to brighten the path with a soft, almost mystical glow. The townsfolk say that the lights on Alohan aren't just lights. They're a part of the memories of those who've passed through the street. The reason no one talks about. Each light is an untold story, a memory not forgotten, promise not yet kept. Every night, Mrs. Mary, who sells toast at the window, would stand and gaze toward the street, her eyes clear as though looking through the dust. "These lights," she often said, "are not to shine, they are to remember." No one ever asked her remember what, but some say she had a son who left when she was still very young. They say she would never stop waiting, and she would never extinguish the light on her porch. A dim glow. One autumn evening, a young man, tall and cold-faced, carrying a rough cloth bag, walked down a lone street. He stopped under each light, as if searching for something. Each time he looked into the glow, his eyes seemed hollow, as though he were returning to a place forgotten, a memory that had faded. Finally, he stopped at the house at the end of the street. This was the house where people still tell the tale, the place where the lights never went out, and it held the memory of someone who had long gone, the story of the man from the past. He stepped onto the porch, and Mrs. Mary, standing inside, recognized him immediately. She didn't speak, only smiled softly. He stood still for a long moment, then finally spoke. "Do you remember me?" Mrs. Mary looked at him, still saying nothing, only silently pointing to the lamp on the porch. "This light has kept what you've forgotten. Can only be that." He bowed his head. Yes, he remembered, but those memories had long since faded. The words left unsaid. Under the light of the final lamp on a lone street, the man sat on the porch, opened his bag, and took out a small box. He opened the box to reveal an old watch, the same watch Mrs. Mary had given him on a rainy night many years ago. He handed the watch to her, whispering, "I think you've forgotten this watch, but I've never forgotten." Mrs. Mary stared at the watch for a long while, the light from the lamp illuminating the cracks on its face, the scratches proving the passage of time. "I haven't forgotten," she said. "It's just, I couldn't embrace everything too soon." The door to her house gently opened, and a light breeze from outside blew in. No one spoke another word, but the light from the lamp seemed to answer everything. An ending or a beginning, Verity, with its lights that never go out, not only keeps the light but also preserves those unfinished moments, the things unsaid, the relationships yet to be healed. A lone street is a place where time can return, but only to help you understand that what matters isn't where you go, but how ready you are to look back. The faint glow of the lamp at the end of a lone street slowly fades into the night, but no one sees it go out because, in verity, the light of the past will always keep burning, whether you realize it or not. The clock repair shop without hour hands. A small street lies in the northeast corner of Verity, where not many people pass by. The houses here are quite old, their roofs faded with time. And in a house near the end of the street, there is a clock repair shop whose existence no one knows how long it's been around. Above the shop door, there is only a wooden sign painted in black, with simple engraving, "Clock Repair Shop Without Hour Hands." A shop that cannot fix time. The shop doesn't have much space. Clocks hang on the walls on wooden shelves, and on work tables, none of them have hour hands, only minute and second hands that tick steadily. So much so that it's impossible to tell the time there. The shop opens with the first light of the sun and closes when darkness falls. No clock measures the time inside the shop. Inside the shop is an elderly man with white hair, sharp, bright eyes, and nimble hands. He is the only one who works in the shop. People only know his name, Mr. Harlow, but no one knows where he's from or how long he's lived. And the strangest thing about Mr. Harlow is his magical ability to repair clocks that have lost their time. The story of the clocks. One day, a middle-aged man with a hollow face walked into the shop. He placed an old clock on Mr. Harlow's work table. The clock had a gold casing, a frosted glass face, but the most unusual thing was that both the minute and second hands had broken off. The clock seemed incapable of functioning. The man sighed. "I don't know if it can still be fixed. This was my father's clock. He passed away, and I just wanted to tick again like when we used to have dinner together." And the clock kept ticking steadily. Mr. Harlow didn't rush. He simply lifted the clock, gazed at the frosted glass for a long while, then placed it back on the table and closed his eyes for a moment. After a while, he opened his eyes and said, "This clock cannot turn back time, but we can give it a new chance." The man didn't understand but still trusted Mr. Harlow and placed the clock in his hands, unsure whether it could be fixed. You can't fix time, but you can change the way you view it. The next day, the man returned to the shop. Mr. Harlow had finished the job. No hour hand had been replaced on the old clock, but the minute and second hands were new. The face of the clock had brightened, but there was no hour hand to measure the time. When the man held the clock, he asked in surprise, "Why didn't you put an hour hand on it?" Mr. Harlow smiled, his eyes sparkling. "Because without an hour hand, this clock is no longer for measuring time. It will be a clock that measures nothing, except to remind you that time isn't always the most important thing." The man held the clock, pondering. A stillness settled in his mind. Had he been too caught up in the whirlwind of time, measuring each minute, each second, only to lose precious moments, moments that could never be counted again? The reason there are no hour hands. From that day on, Mr. Harlow's clock repair shop became more than just a place to fix broken clocks. People began to come not only to find a new clock but to seek a new perspective on time. Some came to fix past mistakes. Some came to find a lost memory. But many came just to realize that time cannot be fixed, but the way we face it is what truly matters. The shop is not just a clock shop. Mr. Harlow transformed his clock repair shop into a magical place. A place where no one sought to heal time, but to heal themselves. If you ever pass through Verity, don't forget to stop by the clock repair shop without hour hands. You may not find a clock that works normally, but you may find a part of yourself you've forgotten. The Lost Memories Market Meeting. When night falls and the streetlights in Verity begin to emit their soft golden glow, a strange meeting takes place at a location that no one can precisely pinpoint, except for those who are meant to be there. It is the meeting of the Market of Lost Memories. This market does not open during the day. Only when night comes, when the town seems to have fallen asleep, do the participants begin to appear. No one speaks of the market, no one asks about it, but everyone knows that if you wish to find something lost, this is the place you must go. Those who have lost something. Some come for forgotten memories. Small things they once lost. Fleeting moments they can't recall but feel are important. Some come for unsaid words. Meetings they never knew how to end. They hope the market will help them find the answers. Some come for a glimpse into the past, to reflect on what they did and what they might have done differently. And some come because they cannot accept that they've forgotten something, memories that have been buried by time. The door without a lock. The market opens when darkness envelopes the town, but there is no sign or indication that this is the place to be. The door to the market is unlatched, without a guard, but whenever someone steps through the threshold, they are led into a space that belongs to no time. Inside is a peculiar space, filled with the scent of damp earth and old wood. Small tables, floral-covered chairs, strange shimmering lights. Everything creates an atmosphere that is both familiar and bizarre. The stalls do not sell ordinary goods. Instead, they hold moments that have been lost. One stall has old photographs, photos people had lost in their lives. Another stall sells worn bracelets, bracelets that someone once wore and forgot, now waiting for their original owner to return. There are memories, moments, simple things that have fallen into oblivion, now lying in wait in the darkness, waiting for someone to come back and reclaim them. A familiar face. In a corner of the market, there sits a man, his face stern, his eyes sharp and cold. He is not from the town, but he seems strangely familiar. No one knows his name, but everyone knows that he is the one who buys and sells memories. He sells the memories that people have forgotten. If you come seeking a lost memory, you will find him, standing silently, waiting for you. And when you ask, he will simply point to the small boxes on the table. Inside those boxes are the memories that have been lost. A smile, an afternoon by the river, an unsent letter, things that can never return, but continue to haunt the mind. Finding lost memories. A woman steps into the market, her eyes filled with worry. She walks past the stalls, stopping in front of the man who sells memories. She gazes at the small boxes, then asks, "Could I have a memory of a day I forgot, a day I missed?" The man does not answer immediately. He gently opens one of the boxes. Inside is an old photograph of her, standing next to a man, both smiling in the sunlight. "This is your memory," he says, "but are you sure you want to take it back?" The woman holds the photograph, looking at it, then quietly pulls her hand away. "No, I don't want to take it back. I just want to remember that I had it." And so, she turns and walks away, a faint smile on her lips, as if she had found something important within her soul, even though it wasn't the memory she had hoped for. The truth of lost memories. The market of lost memories is not a place to reclaim what has been lost. It doesn't help you return to the past, nor can it make you change it. This market is simply a place to understand that memories are not things you can hold onto forever, but what we learn from them is what will stay. Verity, with its people who cherish their memories, will never be forgotten. No matter how time passes, they continue to live with their moments, for it is these memories that have made them who they are. The market of lost memories only opens for those ready to let go. Others, those who cannot accept their losses, will forever wander outside the door, never able to enter. The exit without a name. Verity is a town with no concept of an exit. The roads around the town loop like a time trap, twisting and overlapping as if they were designed to keep you there, never allowing you to leave. It is said that once you arrive in Verity, you cannot leave. Not because there is no way out, but because you will never want to leave. However, some come not to stay, but to find an escape, an exit without a name. Strange footsteps. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip low and the night slowly blanketed the empty streets, a young man in dark clothes and dirty shoes entered the town. He didn't appear to be from Verity, but he had a strangely familiar look, as though he had passed through many places, but had yet to find where he truly belonged. He didn't stop at any shops or inns. He just walked straight ahead, following a narrow path that led out of town. The townsfolk watched him with curious eyes, but no one said a word. It seemed they knew he would not find the way out, because no one can leave this place without being affected by something invisible. The exit never found. The man walked on, looking around with a furrowed brow. He thought that by simply walking out of town, taking a few turns, he would find the road that led to where he needed to be. But no. Each path he chose led him back to where he started. It seemed Verity had no exit. Every time he turned back, he found himself standing in a familiar place. A house, a street corner he had passed before, but he didn't know why he had ended up here again. His heart felt heavy, as if an invisible force was pulling him back every time he tried to leave. He looked up, seeing the stars begin to emerge in the dark sky, but there was no one there to show him the way out. The meeting with the guide. When he was almost despairing and ready to give up, he met a woman standing under the shade of a tree, tall with silvery hair. She looked at him with an understanding gaze, as if she had seen many people lost like him. "What are you searching for?" she asked, her voice gentle but powerful. He stood in silence, unsure of how to respond. The feeling that he had arrived at the right place but didn't know what he was truly searching for left him speechless. "I just want to leave," he said. "I don't belong here." She smiled, stepping closer. "You can't leave unless you understand this. Sometimes the exit is not what you need. What you really need is to understand that you are exactly where you're meant to be." Another path. The woman didn't elaborate. She simply gestured toward the road he had just walked. He looked down it, then turned back to look at her. A strange feeling rose in him, like he had walked that path countless times but had never truly noticed. It felt as though something in his soul had shifted. The exit never had a name. He continued walking, but this time not to leave. He began to move more naturally, no longer in a hurry, no longer worried about whether he would leave Verity or not. He realized that perhaps not every road leads to an exit. Sometimes the exit is the acceptance that you have arrived at where you need to be, that you don't always have to leave to find your purpose. A new awareness. When he returned to the starting point, a strange sensation arose in him. Verity was not a place he had to escape from. It was not a trap. This town, these streets, these people, all of them had a reason for existing in his life. He didn't need to find a way to leave, because he belonged here, whether he realized it or not. The exit, if it existed, was not an escape from Verity, but the willingness to live in this moment, not seeking something different. Verity has no concept of an exit because the true exit is stepping into yourself.